Hola mi gente, MsMalcolmHughes here. Welcome back. Today we are discussing all the books I read in April, so let's get right into it. All right, so in April I had a number of books I wanted to read, including the Booker shortlist to predict the prize. Let's talk about the ones I read and where we are with the others. Some of the books I've already done a mid-month review for, so you can check out those for longer reviews. But the others that I haven't already discussed, we'll get a full review. So first up, we have The House of Eve by Sadiqa Johnson. This book is about... So in this book, we have two different storylines that are parallel, happening at the same time and eventually intertwined. We have two young women, Ruby and Eleanor. So Ruby, we follow her struggling in Philadelphia. She's young. She's a part of this gifted program that's allowing this cohort of students to compete for two positions in order to get a full ride to university. This would make her the first person in her family to go to college, and that is really what she's striving for. Along this journey, something deters her from that path, and she ends up having to take a different course to get back on track to where she was trying to be. Then parallel to that, we have a young woman named Eleanor who is in university. She doesn't come from money. She comes from a small town in the South, but she's at Howard University in DC. She meets this amazing man who is in a different class than her, in a higher class than her. But she's in love. They're in love, so they choose to be together. They have trouble in their marriage, which leads to them... I don't want to tell you all too much, but leads to them designing this entire plan to fool everyone. And eventually they end up in a good place, right? Fake it till you make it. And so eventually Ruby and Eleanor's stories intertwine in a way that initially I didn't see. Eventually you realize what's going to happen, but in a way that is natural and authentic, but in a way neither of them would have ever predicted. So with this story, I ended up really loving this book. This is one of those books that everyone hypes up, so I was a little hesitant to read it, but with the writing, it was really good. It was like fast-paced enough that I never felt bored. I consistently wanted to pick the book up. I wanted to know what was going to happen to our characters. This is also one of those books that I just know the characters are going to stick with me forever. Like, you just think about, like, I wonder where these people are. Even though we do get some info in them, it's like, I wonder where they are. I wonder what's happening to them. I wonder what's up with all the girls from the House of Eve. Those are the ones who have some stories that really, like, gut you, and you hope that they're okay. I think I have a lot of pros for this book. Because it's written from two different perspectives. So Ruby, we get that first person perspective that I really enjoyed. Eleanor, we get you get that omniscient narrator, which is important because we need to know what's happening with everyone. There's multiple characters really impacting the story, as opposed to Ruby is really her voice and her deciding what will happen to her. And I love that. It was subtle, but it was well thought out and really played well with the story and the two different storylines to have two different perspectives and points of view. I loved the analyzing relationships between mothers and daughters and family and how that all plays out together. I like that there was multiple layers within discussing those dynamics and those dialogues. I sometimes hated Ruby's relationship with her body and how that has been impacted by her mother and external men and all of that. And so I thought that was really well done, and unpacking all of that in such a just natural way and leads you to like reflect on it without it being like overtly in your face. I also really appreciated the shout out to Dorothy Porter. For those of you who do not know, Dorothy Louise Porter Wesley was a librarian, bibliographer, and curator who built the Moreland Springham Research Center at Howard University into a world-class research collection. She was the first African-American to receive a library science degree from Columbia University. So I love that she's a real character here. Dr. Carr talks about her all the time, so definitely someone to look up and know about. And so there was just so much goodness here, right? Class, sex, women working, women having to make difficult decisions, especially during a time in the past where we don't have the options we have today, even though those options are just, like, consistently being limited. But I liked that there was a real life expression of that. I really appreciated the afterthoughts of this as well, of the writer really telling us how she came up with this story, the real life events that influenced the story. So in addition to the book, that was just great as well. I do have one big con. I didn't necessarily need the last chapter. I felt like we could have done without the last chapter of the book. I know how it brought everything together, but it almost felt like it was unnecessary to me. But then again, it was the afterthoughts and with the author's notes and all of that information that I felt like brought it all back together in a different way. But the epilogue for me, I could have done without. Overall, I really love this book. Would highly recommend. On my scale of read now, read when you want, read when you have time. Read now, read if you want, read if you have time. This is definitely a read now. This book was dynamic. It actually makes me want to go back and read all of the books that were nominated for the NAACP Outstanding Literature Award, because this was one of them, but it didn't win. So it makes me wonder if she got slighted or if the books were better. So it makes me want to read them. So definitely check this out. Next up, we have The Blood Gift by N.E. Davenport. As you all know, I really love The Blood Trials. I've been trying to get through this book since February. Finally finished. It was a struggle. So I want to be honest about this book. I did not like it. And I don't like saying that. There were some aspects that were really good, but for me, I haven't told y'all what this book was about. So this week, if you read The Blood Trials, we continue following Akenna, our main character, on this journey to kill the Blood Emperor and get revenge for the tribunal that killed her grandfather. And for me, it was just so much that was off. And I reread the first book before reading this just so to avoid this problem if it wasn't true. For me, it felt like the characters' voices were different. I initially found myself asking how much time has passed since we ended the last book, and it hasn't been much because everyone sounded so much more bitter, so much more older, so much angrier. And obviously these things can happen, but it felt inauthentic. Honestly, the first 170 pages of this book, I really had to push through to continue. After that, I still had to push to continue. I will say, I didn't really love the storyline. There were some characters that I really did like, some new characters. So we had Adressa. I really enjoyed her. I actually like Ajani. Akenna, eventually, I felt like she found her footing as far as the writing and feeling like the character that I had grown to know. I didn't really care for reading this book, honestly. I liked him a lot more in the first one. I also felt like there were just certain scenes that I was looking forward to, and I don't feel like they got their due. So I felt like Akenna and Kanai's crown prince needed more than what we got. Their relationship and her connection to that family deserved more than the time we got with them in this book. I felt like Akenna and Celine, for all of that history, that deserved more. I like the growth that the author tried to do at the end of this book for all of the characters and Akenna finding peace, but I was dissatisfied, but that's okay. Overall, I thought this book was all right. It was all right. It didn't live up to the first one to me by any means. The fight scenes were cool. I just felt like there was a lot of vulgarity in the speaking oftentimes. And I don't know if that was because initially a lot of folks didn't realize that this is not a YA book, that it's adult fantasy. And I felt like really early on, it was like really pushed for us to understand that. After about page 170, I felt like things leveled out a bit. And the book more so found its footing, and we had a more consistent pace, but did not love it. Based on my scale of read now, read when you have time, or read if you want, this is a read if you have time, read when you have time if you want. So that's what I have to say about The Blood Gift. Another book I read this month is The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I did a full review of that in the other video, so definitely check that out. Overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it a rating of read when you have time, but that was a high read when you have time, so I did really enjoy that one. The other one we had was Soul Ties by Miss Candace. I love that book. That was a read now. Gave that one a full review, so check that one out. Because I love that book so much, I went on to read Saint, the second book in that series by Miss Candace. I finished that one as well. It was also so good, a read now. That story follows Saint Baptiste, the brother of Jihad Baptiste, who we become very familiar with in Soul Ties. And here we have Saint Baptiste, who is dating Naoki Childs, the best friend of Sienna from the first book. And now we have the complexities. Again, we have two different characters, two different storylines. It goes back and forth. They're obviously always intertwining because these two are connected. We get all of the challenges of them both trying to come to terms with how they feel about each other. For Naoki, it's very triggering. Some old childhood wounds are coming up because of the way she's treated and their dynamic in their relationship. And we have Saint Baptiste, who is just out here trying to avoid his feelings for her by all means. However, you cannot fight love. They cannot outrun each other. And so we go on this journey and dynamic with them of unpacking both of their childhood traumas. Honestly, what does it mean for their future? Will they be able to find their way to each other? Can they have a healthy relationship that isn't toxic, built on chaos, and built on hidden feelings that are expressed while the other doesn't really know? Right? And so that's what we have. But the story read beautifully. It was really good. I enjoyed it. I had initially seen someone state that this book is better than Soul Ties. And I was like, that's a lot. But it's really good. It is better, but in its own way. So if I gave Soul Ties a read now, this one is a read now. Absolutely. It was so good. I'm really glad that I read it. I am going to continue the series. I have ordered my copy of Soul Ties. She's gonna do some I think dual package for the second book of Saint when it comes out. I'm planning to get that, so you all know where I stand on that. Also, The House of Eve, I read that one digitally and I purchased it. Again, tells you where I stand on that. So I'll read nows. Those are the books that I read. There are some books that I'm reading that I told you all I would be reading in April, and they're still coming. So first up, we have one of the books from the Booker Prize shortlist, and that is Mater to 10. That is still coming. Also from the Booker Prize, we have The Details. I have that digitally. That will be coming. We have Kairos. I have that digitally. That will be coming. I do not have Not a River. We'll read it, and that will be coming. I do not have What I'd Rather Think About. We'll read it. That will be coming. And I do have Cricket Plow digitally as well. That will be coming. Other books that will also be coming is David Copperfield. Again, I'm reading this so that I can read Demon Copperhead. So this will still be coming. My last book, that's a holdover from February. So that was February reads. Whew. Is Shouting in the Fire. This one is still coming. I am making my way through. I'm hoping to finish that one really soon. And then also Jubilee. That one I have not finished yet. I've started and it will be coming. Those are the books that I read in April and my thoughts. I hope that you all enjoyed them. If you've read them, let me know below what books did y'all read this month. The next video coming to the channel, we'll be talking about the books that I am reading in May. I have a very exciting and special announcement for that, so stay tuned. As always, I am MsMalcolmHughes, one who believes that books are sometimes better than people. And until the next one, please remember to give time, to be kind to each other, and to have the very best day of your life on purpose. Peace. O dabo. Adios. Ciao.